All right. Hi, everyone over on YouTube. First thing is that I make sure that we are live on YouTube, so hold on. And we'll do that first. And we're not really going to spend too much time really in introductions because I think the topic probably precedes both of us as to who we are and where we're situated in the space.
I hope so. I hope so, but I understand if introductions are necessary.
I think that maybe from your point of view, because let me let people know just a little bit. We met each other under unique circumstances, under the notion of parody on Twitter. If I remember this correctly, I kind of came at you and asked you questions about the parody account and what
Yes.
this might all mean, and being that the Bitfinex account or parody account had seemed to kind of take a darker side and went radio silent. I don't know all the details, and I have my own suspicions about sort of kind of why. And then out of kind of the ether, without a pun intended, there you were. And I was like, darn it, wouldn't another dandelion come up on my beautiful lawn, of serenity. So just get into it. Tell people about, what the parody account means and
Sure.
and so forth and so on. Okay.
Sure. I'm absolutely, I was inspired by Bitfinex. I won't say that's incorrect at all. And I got into the space not so long ago. I started researching just over a year ago. So I started doing research in April of 2017, and in August of 2017, I invested. And in January, I divested. And the reason I divested in January was because of Bitfinex, because I had read his tweets and his Medium articles. So I just felt they were so absurd that I decided to start a parody account as the CFO of a fake parody account of the CFO of Bitfinex and one of the leaders within Tether as well. And I was always just kind of trying to help discuss the narrative in that regard, in a more comical sense. But the longer it went on, and then when Bitfinex went silent, I decided to maybe dig a little bit deeper.
Okay, and just so that you know too, as the internet would be, I have a Nightbot that's set up that's going to be reminding traders about rules and also a cookbook. So take no, never mind. I did not close the Nightbot down, so this is just kind of natural. But if you do see the chat come through, that's what's happening, which is how the market is,
Right.
Too, right? It's very confusing. It's convoluted. There's a lot of coalescing of ideas. So as Bitfinex kind of took this back seat, and you actually thought, well, I'll take kind of the softer, more comical side, but I don't sense that from you at all.
Not anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about why you think that you made that switch. Where did it kind of fall off that you weren't going to take it the parody, cartoony route?
It got more and more. It got more and more serious for me the more that I saw how kind of there didn't seem to be much of an effect at first with Bitfinex's narrative. So even though I was reading into it and I felt like I understood it, it didn't seem like it mattered. So I was interested in understanding why. And then,
like on a psychopop kind of level, or
I would say the further I've gone, it's been more of a really interesting psychological test and dynamic in regards to market behavior and personal behavior as well.
I think this is one of the things that connects us too, because I'm always looking for what is that 6 degrees of separation when we're competing with 200 million posts on Twitter a day or whatever crazy thing. You know, how is it that we find each other? And I can tell you that as a trader, I am completely fascinated with the market participant. And so I get only nervous because a lot of the air quote market participants in and with Bitcoin consider themselves intellectuals.
Yeah.
And I get very nervous about that, you know.
Right.
And so when we started talking, that's why maybe you could hear that I was being more forceful with what I do know, which is that if we are going to get out and serve the community or serve the market participants, the buffet of reality, like I want to be talking to you if you know that.
Right.
If it's summation or rumor or something else, then I'm not so much there. So when did you think that it was a story like worthy? Like what hit you when you kind of felt like it was worthy enough to, you know, really?
So the parody account was birthed from the idea of just hearing Giancarlo Devasini talk in Whalepool.
Yes.
And I'm not going to disparage anyone, but yeah, the things he was saying didn't seem incredibly sensible to me. And I'm not trying to speak as an intellectual. I'm not trying to speak as I'm just saying as a normal person, it didn't sound
Now,
up to snuff.
Were you aware that English is not his first language?
Yes, I understand that.
And were you aware that he's always been very cautious and almost kind of, he has the same sort of kind of nervous tone. And I believe that especially in the whale pool environment, that we can trip on our words. Like we can know what we want to say, but we're put in a position of so much like there's a lot of ego going on. And I mean, because I'm basically the grandmother. You don't know this about me, but I'm the grandmother of all of this. And so when I very first heard him, I was being more like, okay, just, take your time, it's going to be okay. And if you are seated here long enough, you'll have a voice of your own. So what you heard was what, like a tripping on words, or like what?
It wasn't about his tonality. It wasn't about the fact that he's Italian. It was about the fact that what he was saying in regards to the Bitfinex token and the Bitfinex hack.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The solution didn't sound copacetic to me.
Right.
And not entirely judging people by their past. I know it's fair that people need to be forgiven for things they've done and that everybody makes mistakes, but yeah, there's a record there. So it just seemed a little foolish to me to be trusting someone like that.
Okay, so foolish or tomfoolery? Because there was a sense of, wait a second, it feels very much like a shell game. There's a shell game of some sort going on. There's tomfoolery going on. And how fast they could put those pieces together, like it was a race against being found out. That's what it felt like to me. And then these are in the early moments. And I was there the night of the hack.
Right.
So I'm very well aware of how using the word desperate is mild. Okay. That, and maybe you were privy to that as well. So it did also feel to me as though that they were hobbling together an answer. Or cobbling together, maybe that's the right word.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
I felt similarly when I heard that.
Right. So when did you believe that that's what actually was happening?
So all of this, all of this started making more sense to me the longer I was paying attention. So I come to this as someone who has, who is trading on exchanges with the, I guess, with the hope, with the, or not the hope, but sorry,
vision, like
I just not even maybe naivete that things like Tether, it's stupid, and I know this doesn't probably bode well for my own character in terms of trustworthiness, but I definitely trusted it without question at first, and maybe because it was the only game in town. I didn't even bother, and everyone was using it. I didn't bother questioning the dynamics of the situation. But
so
then
it made sense to you that this would be the solution?
Yeah. Well, once I started delving further into it, I didn't necessarily understand the connection between Tether and Bitfinex right away. Then there was the Panama Papers, and then things just started coming to light more and more in regards to the connections between the two, and the Tether Report in January. So there were just a number of things that kept going against them, and then the number one thing that to this day will hound anyone who wants to say Tether might be okay is, when is there going to be an audit?
So we've talked about a few things now with 11 minutes in, and one of the things that we did lay out when we were talking with DMs was that I wanted to ask you some simple questions, because I think a lot of people think that they know the answers, but can I run you through just a couple of, like, a little questionnaire? Okay. What is Tether?
Right. So Tether is a cryptocurrency. It's a centralized cryptocurrency based on a layered protocol of Bitcoin called Omni. Okay. And Tether is a, quote, stable coin. And stable coins are designed to operate in the sense that they are pegged to something. So whatever that may be, it may be $1, it may be a pound, it may be, I don't know, the spot price of gold. So Tether is supposed to be pegged to the price of $1. That was the original intention of a Tether. And the concept behind Tether was that for every Tether that they printed, there would be $1 in a bank to back that dollar up. So for every Tether, there was $1 in a bank somewhere. And then another big part of this was that they would be doing frequent audits. And to prove that they were, one, solvent, and two, I suppose not doing any funny business. And that's, yeah. So that.
Okay, so let's stop there. Who decided that it would be pegged to the dollar? That's an interesting question. And then the other one is that who also decided that there would be an audit? I mean, where was the pressure for an audit to be performed? Was this just part of it's in part of the documentation in the white paper, or like, you know, where did all, okay.
Yes.
So I know that what we'll probably do, like in description maybe, is start to build up a little story, you know, of, okay, this is a Tether, this is the white paper, this is what you should read. And I think if there's anything that we can do together is encourage people to learn these things. You know, if we can push them into learning, that would be like a really good thing. So here it is.
Sure.
It's been decided that it will be pegged to the dollar. It has been decided that there will be an audit, and then
right. So just really quickly, just to give this some background very quickly. Okay. Tether was originally called real coin, and it was introduced in 2014 by Brock Pierce. And then it was essentially purchased, and the name was changed by Bitfinex to Tether. And so that was the establishment of Tether as we know it today. But sorry, continuing on that, yes, the idea of an audit is both still on the website to this day, where it mentions frequent audits. So you can just go visit tether.to right now, and you will see frequent audits. It's either frequent audits, I believe is what it says, and full transparent. And
then just to be snarky, and we're going to hold them to it. Right? I mean, that's what we're going to do, because that's what I just going to play snarky for just a moment, because we're going to hold them to it, because that's just how we operate in our life, right? We're just going to hold them to it.
Oh, you mean,
well,
hold Tether?
Yeah, we're going to hold Tether, to these promises that they've given us in this unregulated environment. So I'm being a little snarky here. Why are we holding them? Why are we holding them accountable?
Okay, so for me, first of all, the idea of someone making a promise, I mean, to this day, that is still there. So the idea that someone makes you a promise, whether it's whoever you want it to be, if you want it to be the government, if you want it to be a corporation, and if you want it to be a person, I think we should be holding people accountable for promises that they make. And in regards to the very foundations of this cryptocurrency, its whole concept relies on trust and faith that they have a one-to-one backing by US dollars.
So we're going to fast forward then. When did you start believing that they do not have the backing?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I think it started dawning on me in late December, and then it really hit home in January. So by January, I was convinced, and I think the nail in the coffin for me, I think I certainly would have felt less inclined to believe it until the Tether Report came out, and the Tether Report made me feel much more confident, even though I'm sure there are holes that can be poked in that analysis as well.
And you're speaking about the Tether Report why we're all together today.
No. There was a Tether. It was. You can visit it now. I believe it's still up. It's tetherreport.com.
So we'll put that in the description too. Then, so there's a predecessor. There's a what's it called? A predecessor, or there's another document that you guys need to know about. And let me stop for just a moment and say thank you to the 7 people that are watching, and is the YouTube way. Thumbs up the content just to let YouTube know that we're here, and share it with your social channels if that's kind of the way that you do your life online. So once this report came out, you just got more information, like more confidence that you were on the right trail?
Yeah. So in the lead up to that moment, remember that we had, I'm now recalling, even though I guess it's all a blur to me now, but the CFTC subpoena.
Yes.
Which, but that wasn't announced until January as well. So that the Tether Report came out, and the announcement for the CFTC subpoena came out in January. And both of those were strong indicators that there was an issue. But if I recall correctly, Friedman was either fired or abandoned ship in December, I believe. So all of those 3 things occurring in a very short amount of time seemed unlikely to me.
So let's just look at it this way. We know now, this is coming from Phil himself trying to explain to people about how difficult it is to get auditors to stay on board with it because it's unknown and uncharted. And if they were doing something wrong, certainly, especially Friedman, who is still in the space, by the way, I think that they had a booth at Consensus. I think they've been at a couple of conferences, full frontal, relationship with the cryptocurrency community. So they're not abandoning anything. They may have, what I'm trying to say by this is that they're still there. And many times consultants will come and go inside of projects or realize that they can't get it done for the amount of money or what have you. And they'll leave their retainer. I don't know if it's ever been said out loud that they've left their retainer or they abandoned ship. And I try to read everything about Friedman. Do you do the same thing? Like I'm always following that trail.
Yeah, and I've never heard one way or the other if they were fired or if they left, or I don't want to claim that I know, because I certainly don't.
Well, they're still out there, and I only want to make that point known because it wasn't as though they were retained and then because they ran across, the bloody glove, that they decided that they would leave. Because if they had found something that was even broaching criminality or civil disobedience, they are impugned to tell the law.
And on that same note, they have been subpoenaed as well by the CFTC.
Oh, were they included?
Yes.
Does this go back to the December? I believe the subpoenas were issued, I want to say the first week of December. So,
yeah, I don't know if I don't remember if they were subpoenaed after that, but I do know that they have been subpoenaed as well.
And then are you also kind of aware that when you're subpoenaed, you're given interrogatories? And those interrogatories, you can come back with your answers, which are basically, this is overreaching, this is overbearing, it's impossible for us to answer all of these questions. But it doesn't say to anyone, especially in the legal field, that you are guilty of anything. When you're subpoenaed and you're, okay, just so we understand each other. With that, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to necessarily cast subpoena as instant guilt. I just, I essentially, when you asked me what made me feel like I was losing confidence in the idea of Tether, and then gaining confidence in the idea of essentially a connection between Bitfinex and Tether and some level of market manipulation.
Culpability, yeah.
Yes, right. Culpability. Those things all occurring within a very short amount of time seemed like not a normal coincidence.
So we know that you've taken kind of on the social channels, you've taken the Tether route. Have you gone so far to write letters to the CFTC? Have you gone so far as to write letters to the New York division of whatever that's called? Like, have you taken that action?
I've spoken to media outlets, and I previously called the CFTC, but they were pretty unresponsive as a regulatory agency at the time. Then again, they might know.
What was it like to approach the media? Tell us a little bit about, I don't disclose the media outlet, but what was that like to actually pick up the phone and contact the
media? Certainly a little frustrating at first, I would say. You don't get taken very seriously, certainly, as someone who at least would like to think you're onto an interesting topic to cover.
Right. And you're always searching for the right desk, because you could actually make a contact, but that person doesn't, isn't responsible for the desk that is ultimately going to be covering that story. And then now you never know if you're talking to anyone of import, because everyone wants to be made part of the story. So you might have someone that's, you know, an intern that wants to make good with their editorial board. So have you found any friends outside of the curious and concerned? Have you found any, you know, friends out there, or people that kind of get what you're getting at, or get where you're coming from?
You mean in real life, or do you mean like over the internet?
Nothing is real. There's nothing.
Okay.
I know. I mean, I don't even know who I'm talking to. You're just a guy on the internet, you know. But
right,
yeah,
right.
like any, are you finding any like following, or?
I've had a really great experience the whole time. To be fair, I've had a really wonderful experience in that I've met people with divergent perspectives who I'm more than happy to listen to, and oftentimes I find myself at least slightly changing my mind, and I think it's best to have an open mind about these things and be willing to shift your perspective as things unfold.
Well, sure, because you can actually end up being the Scribner and still holding the same opinions, still holding the same concerns, and yet be a Scribner for the time, because everyone is so, I would say, hot-headed about this, that you know, for me to say, well, let's see if we can get Phil Potter to come in and talk to us, and they're like, oh, that'll never happen, right? And I can write him, and it can happen. So there's so many people that are open and available to, as we're just having right now, just an open discussion, getting some of the facts out there so that people can make their own, what do they say, their own informed decision. But they also need to know that they are aligning themselves with someone that is reasonable. And I'm going to just talk to you about my observation about Bitfinex. The number one issue with a parody account such as his is that, of course, they went very high profile on Reddit. And they went very high profile in this damning and demeaning and very not, well, you're not going to get the right people behind you. And you need the right people behind you. You need the right press. You need the exchange. You know, there's a lot of oppositional stuff, oppositional research that's out there that Arthur Hayes would love to be talking to you, or, you know, there's exchange operators that would like to be talking to you. So the Scribner in all of this has a very important role. And also because things are moving so quickly, like what I said to you tonight was that let's just go ahead and go online, because getting it now, getting this ephemeral reality now, is more important than even what happens tomorrow, because we don't know. We don't know how big the story. The story's been on social for 14 hours. Someone was asking me over at the WPYT chat, as I call it. And, you know, they wanted to know, well, how long has the story been out? So, you know, I did my scroll down on Twitter, and the story had been out for 14 hours. So we just don't know. The story could perpetuate itself for another, well, you know, 3 months, 6 months. Yeah. So, you know, I would like to encourage, you know, you to think of it as a bigger responsibility, in not that you have to be the fact checker, but that you could be kind of, what are they, the Pied Piper in a way. You know, okay, listen, we're going to walk down this road. It's going to be rocky as hell. It's going to be uncomfortable. We're going to find things that will surprise us and amaze us. And we have to make the decision as to what we want to share with the public and what are their outs. You know, what can they do with the information? Because there are questions that are coming out. When I don't know if you were listening when Phil was talking, and Cloud was really coming after him. You know, well, why can't I get my Tether? Like, do you know why you can't get your tether? Why can't you get your tethers?
You're asking me.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's no redemption. I mean, that's also in the white paper. There's no redemption of tethers.
And you knew that.
Yes, I'm keenly aware of that. Yeah.
So when we have these kind of contentious reactions, even though you know that there's no redemption, why do you think people are like so upset? Because you don't think that they're there? You don't think that there's no redemption because they can't be redeemed because these are just phantoms?
So I think this kind of brings us around to what happened today, right?
Yep.
In regards to the academic paper that was released, and I guess people in the space have questions regarding the author of that, and they have questions regarding the conclusion to that as well, which fair enough. You're of course entitled to anyone is entitled to their opinion. But yeah, so the concern essentially becomes being a fractional reserve when you're claiming to be a fully backed one-to-one currency. So in the data presented, they essentially say that what they were hypothetically doing was pushing Tether into the market, and whenever there was a dip of any kind, they would push the Tether onto the market, mm-hmm. and they would buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin would go above what they had purchased Bitcoin at with the Tether, and then they could sell off to reaccumulate money so that they could meet the reserves that they were lacking. So essentially, there's multiple issues with that in terms of if that's what was going on and if that's what was happening. There's a lot of problems with that, but the one to hone in on is the idea that it was a fractional reserve, and if you were fractional reserve and you were essentially front-running clients and spoofing your way up on the charts, that's pretty hard to audit, and it's it seems like an issue.
When I was reading through the paper, and I was enjoying myself because I got to look up, was the E for epsilon or was the E for Eos? I couldn't. So I was having a really good time going back into my, my school years because I thought, okay, you know what we'll do? We're just going to read the dang thing, right? Yeah. We're going to read we're going to do exactly what the WCN did, but did it poorly today. We're just going to read the darn thing. Let's just do that just for the public archive, right? Just get it out there. So I'm reading through it, and of course I didn't go live with it, but I'm reading through it and I'm going, okay. I start taking notes. Okay, well that's a really great trading strategy. I kind of like. I'm kind of like.
Of course.
The guy the way that this guy just laid out a trading strategy. I mean, it's brilliant, So of course, I sent a couple notes out. Take a look at it and is there really a trading strategy in this, or is this just backward or fuzzy math in order to expose or elevate Wells Fargo? And I guess you saw that little blurb that I put in, that he was a former Wells Fargo fellow. I mean, his education in part was paid for by Wells Fargo. And
right. Okay. Right.
Yeah. So I think it's Wells Fargo. So as reading through it, of course, I'm like, okay, let me get kind of a feel for if you're looking to expose, right? Because it basically was perceived as an expose. Is that how you kind of saw it? Did you really see it as an academic writing?
I mean, there's a lot of data there. So in terms of, I think they even stated as much in the paper, is that it needs to be reviewed and they also state there's for sure key moments in there that I would say lend itself to the concept of this person wanting there to be regulation, right?
Yes.
Yes. And I'm not trying to hide that from anyone, that may indeed be what this person is doing. And
yeah, there
I don't
some
want
natural inferences too, and I don't have the paper open. We'll make sure that we put the PDF down below, because first of all, it is 66 pages in total, but it's only 32, 33 pages of written academic work. And then the rest are diagrams and reference citations. Right. So don't be afraid to get in there and start writing, because I want us to just keep, as much as we could to keep digging in and knowing how to read through, not knowing how to read them for what they are, just read them, and then try to come up with some sort of a, conclusion for yourself. But then going back and really understanding that everyone lives through intention. And if that intention is not, I think, did you see the CNBC piece tonight?
No, I didn't see the CNBC
Okay,
piece.
so the co-author was on CNBC. Maybe I should give you a moment to, it's only like 2 minutes long or something, if you wanted to grab it and check it out right now. I'd love to get your feedback on how they handled themselves tonight.
Do you know where I can?
Oh yeah.
I can find.
Can you jump to my Twitter from where you're at?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Then just go down a couple of posts and you'll see the link.
There we
I
go.
believe. So we'll give you a couple minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will listen to that right now.
Cool. And then I'll just kind of talk to the good people that are watching us.
Okay.
So, yeah, you want to put me on mute maybe? Or?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, there you go. All right, so as we take another listen to the CNBC piece, and then we'll get back on mic and talk about what the observations are of that. But we're just kind of looking at right now where we are in the discussion is, what did this academic paper reveal to us? Is it just a clever twisting and paid for by the University of Texas, Austin? Like going back to intention and seeing what it's all about, and maybe getting some other people to really read it and unravel some of the math. And so I hope you guys say something in the chat if you guys want to let me know that. Is there a question that you have? I think the cool thing about maybe being over in my space is that I like to just, be very elementary about it and get just the simple questions kind of asked and answered so that you sort of kind of know, and then also be able to make connections with people so that you can pursue, the topic. So I'll be very patient. If you have not seen the CNBC piece, you guys might want to jump out there. And also to remind you, the Nightbot is just running on its own. Nightbot, if you guys follow my work, you'll know why you're learning about lemon chicken right now.
Okay, so yeah, that was that was an incredibly brief interview.
Considering.
I also think that I appreciate Nathaniel Popper writing that article in the New York Times today in regards to getting the word out, but I also think it is important to go ahead and delve into the paper itself if you want to have a thorough understanding of what it's espousing, whether you agree with it or not, and whether you agree with the author or not. Because it seems like a lot of people, like if I watched that didn't really explain much, you know?
Mm-hmm. To me, it felt very much like headline filler press yet again. It's impossible to get deep in these things without there being forums to allow for them. And even in the Bitcoin forums, you know, we could not have a continuous conversation for 40 minutes without repeated, you know, shoutings and that sort of thing. So I think maybe we've kind of set out a little bit of a roadmap. I encourage you guys to follow, and it's very hard for me to say your parody name.
Yeah, no, I'll say it. It's
but you say it.
At Cas C-A-S Cas Piancey, Piancey.
And it'll be on my Twitter too. Like we'll put a couple of things out on Twitter, and then we'll probably rename the discussion too. So we don't. I asked if anyone had any questions, and there are no questions. And so right now it's really kind of, I would think it's for the public, you know, to be educated and then connect with you. Really, I think that, you know, you probably would benefit from, as I said, any time that there's something like this, people benefit from being able to hear from others that have the same level of concern. And, you know, and I think it would be really great if we could maybe do like a follow-up, and I can do a little bit of stuff, you know, out on Twitter, and maybe we can do a little bit deeper dive into the paper itself if you wanted to.
Sure. And I'm curious as to how, I mean, unless you, I understand if you need to leave really quickly, but I just am curious as to how you felt about all of it and how you feel about the situation.
Well, I don't have any feelings anymore. I have not really had, this is going to sound really crazy, but I have not had any true feelings since the night of the hack. And one reason is that I love these people, and I love Bitcoin, and it's everything that I have ever wanted for myself and for my family. And that night, and you may not know this, but I'm the founder of Ruby, which is it's a script that you put on your TradingView charts that guides you using EMAs. It's a very simple script. It was not to be anything too special, but it followed the Willy bot. And it was built and deployed, and for every $5,000 block, it returned $720,000. So I've been around for a while, since $12.50. And that night, when I saw Ruby go short and then it went into sideways doji, I was in Whale Pool shouting at the top of my lungs to everyone, we need to contact Phil. Something is wrong here. Something is terribly wrong. I had never, and I'm like the Billion candle watcher. I've probably seen more cryptocurrency candles than anyone that you know. And it's my life. And I knew, like, you know, like when you know that something's wrong with a child, you know, I knew that there was a sickness, there was something wrong. Now, I've seen these things happen with TradingView, but I was in contact with TradingView, and they were getting the same data. TradingView had not gone dark on their data, you know, and so the hack was happening, and I'm, you know, screaming at the top of my lungs, and everybody's, you know, whatever, everybody's asleep, beauty, you know, and whatever, just calm yourself. And of course, it was within, I don't know, I think maybe I was in a panic for a couple of hours. I had called the short before the hack. So I have not had feelings about too much since then. I am made part of the bounty for the hack.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try, and from that day on, to be more like, Phil, it's beauty. There's a concern. Do you want to address the concern? Because there's a lot of people in this that I really love, people that I think that have really put their neck out. They're doing everything that they can. And just like maybe you even, then when that one day hits you and you say, have I been duped?
Yeah.
Have I been all these hours, thousands of hours, hundreds of hours, and dozens of hours with these people privately? Have I been lied to? But I go through the front door and I say, Phil, are you lying? And when he writes me back and says no, I have to believe him, or else then I'm nothing in this. I'm literally nothing. If I can't go through the front door, figure out how best to deliver my question, because I'm called the Queen of Trolls. I ate the troll meat early on, being online with Bitcoin. And, so I have to kind of phrase my questions knowing that I might hear what everyone else thinks to be the truth, but I can only go and rely on what my truth is with these people, which is that there's nothing wrong with Tether. Tether is perfectly fine. There's nothing illegal going on here. There's no civil problems. Now, there are some people that I don't think, like my feelings about someone that says that they've had an in-camera inspection of Tether's books. I want you to think about that for a moment. A guy that runs a TeamSpeak channel that earns affiliate income from all the exchanges was given the right to an in-camera inspection of Tether. Now, do you believe that? So this is when my feelings start to come out, because I don't believe that, and I'll use a bad word. I don't believe that shit for a moment, because I know what it takes to get an in-camera inspection of a bank.
Yeah.
So don't, telling me not to worry because you've had an in-camera inspection, I get very, very agitated. Because who are, you are not the voice of this at all, okay? You're smoking a blunt, you're yelling at your children, you're whatever. Your job is to be a TeamSpeak operator. That's your job, and you had an in-camera inspection of Tether. I just don't believe it. I don't believe that a steak dinner gives you that. So that's when I start, that interpersonal stuff, that's when my feelings start to come out, because if I'm okay to listen and just take it for face value. Okay, Friedman didn't want the gig, so they're gone. But there are other auditors out there, right? And I ask Phil, I go through the front door, ask him, is this all bullshit? Do you know what's going down? Blah, blah, blah. He tells me I have to be okay with that. Do I share that with the world? No. I can only share it with you that I believe what he tells me, what he told me. Nothing weird is going on here. Now, on the interpersonal side, is it interesting? Like, I get to meet you, right? I get to talk to really interesting people that have these ideas, and I don't need to convince you of it, because that's not my job. So my feelings, I wish that we could be talking pre-hack, because you would understand how excited I am for my son's future. Like a lot of people know this. I used to say, when you are in your prime, I will be in my dust. And that I hope that you'll think, one day you'll go, oh my God, Beauty mentioned something about that, didn't she? because I'm the elder in all of this. I'm older than everyone. And, I don't want any of us to be hurt and harmed by something that has so much promise. That would really, that would bring me back from the dead and be very, be very upset. And then you'll see my feelings then.
Yeah, no, I empathize at least on some level or at least sympathize. Yeah, I understand. And I certainly don't want people to think that I'm like some enemy that needs to be taken out or something. I want. I obviously have my own thoughts on and my own beliefs in regards to what has transpired, but I also feel like I'm open-minded enough that if I was presented with data and just a proof, I would shut up. I would shut up about it, and I don't want to come across as an enemy to really anyone. And especially concepts like Bitcoin, where I certainly am not trying to instill unconfidence in that. I'm not trying to instill lack of confidence in the idea of digital currency. I'm not trying to do that. I'm simply trying to bring attention to essentially questions that need to be answered for me.
I think it's admirable. I mean, I just wish that the table was bigger, and also that the framework had been set out a little bit better, because clearly the ideal of Bitfinex somehow, and I'll just tell you what my fairy tale is that he got paid. He got paid off. And this is a very easy thing to do. We don't want you talking anymore. And it's unfounded, and you're either going to take the deal or you're not. And he took the deal. That's my idea, because why would you? Like, people know that I'm very passionate. I will never stop talking about, what I know, and what, even to the point of, I remember one night I walked in, the market was absolutely doing nothing, and I walked in and I said, "It's going to be okay, guys, okay?" Why, Beauty? How do you know that? I said, "Because the Church of Scientology is placing $1 million order Monday morning at 9:30. They're like, "How do you know that?" I'm just telling you, okay? So my life is that people come to me with like the most wackadoodle, that just like crazy shit. And we call it the coming to Jesus moment with me. They just come to me and they tell me all this stuff. People are always very curious about that. Well, the market moved. Thank goodness that I wasn't found to be wrong. But you have the potential of creating an ethos that's necessary. Whistleblowers and people that expose and get in there and need the situation, they become very important to any ecosystem, whether it's fashion or science or car tech, or it doesn't matter. To have it not be there, which it was absent for a very long time, by the way.
Yeah.
And I mean, outside of what I call the handcuff play. I mean, when the handcuffs come out, then, you pretty much know, okay, I was right.
Over.
Right? Not even then. There's all sorts of cool things that you can do when the handcuffs come out. But basically, you've just been faced with, it's either handcuffs or all lollipops and, and unicorn dust. And so I think that you hold a very, important role. I just wish that Bitfinex had not done the whole cartoony thing. But, I mean, this is me. And, I've sat in many hours with Chrysalis, and the angst, and this was true angst. This was not something that he was trying to hide. Very concerned of who this, not so much like who was this person, but almost becoming obsessed with finding out who would want, like who would want to do this, but not yet go to the step that's required. And I used to say this, call the cops. And I say this a lot on the internet. You think that you're in harm's way? You think that you're being trolled to death or battered and bruised or bullied, whatever? Call the friggin' cops. File a claim. Get, this whole idea of getting an attorney but not having an attorney and not doing, an attorney is going to tell you, stop talking. The case is now in my hands. You need to shut up. But he wouldn't do that. He claimed he had a lawyer, but he wouldn't shut up. But, of course, Bitfinex did that too. You recall, we have an attorney, and then the attorney started to do.
To be fair, just to bring this, I don't know if you were aware, but that Bitfinex did tweet today.
He did, and there's well, actually, it was more than that. He put out a YouTube video.
yeah, and it is.
I mean, come on. I know, but I mean, it would have been okay if that's what it was. Do you see the difference?
Right.
But it got to be a little bit more. It's about deciding who you want to be. I mean, comedians go through this too. Actors go through this. Who am I in this? What do I see for myself in this?
Right.
And people thought maybe he wanted to be famous, and I'm like, well, famous for what? Because what he's doing isn't going to be enough. He needs to have, an army. You need an army. Well, you need a few people anyway. And you need a good host. You need someone that can bring you on, and so you can kind of lay it out. And no one was coming forward to say, I'll host you. I guess, who was it? It wasn't Tone Vase that hosted. Was it WCN? It was Tone Vase.
Tone Vase and Jimmy Song.
There you go. And of course, a very not so right, chemistry going on there. And then, of course, I heard the voice and I was like, oh, I know who it is. And everybody's like, no way, Beauty, you don't know. I think, yeah, I think I know who this is. And it's like, wow, I don't, you have to have a plan. There's this great quote that I use a lot. It says, if you don't have a plan, you'll be made part of someone else's plan. And, but I mean, I think that you've been set now maybe on a better course, maybe. And I think there's going to be more. There's going to be more that's going to come from today, like a lot more.
I would assume so, and I'm not trying to weigh. I guess in a sense I'm trying to be more of an objective observer of what seems to be taking place, and to me, it sure feels like there's repercussions, and I'm not just talking about market price. I'm not just talking about the price of altcoins or the price of Bitcoin. I'm saying there's real philosophical debate involved when you start to boil down what's going on with all of this.
Sure. Yes.
Because
you remotivate a market participant, you don't know who you're affecting.
Right.
You're affecting family, dreams, money. And when you get involved with people's money based on a lie, it's not just that karma, it's not karma, it's money. Money has its own power and authority and rule of place. Like I follow money. That's what I do. I do it every day. And so you start to interfere with that mindset, that human part of me, you're going to run into some problems. You put a roadblock or something weird happens, that's unexpected, that I don't have the toolkit for, then you run into problems. People get fearful and greedy, and all that weird need comes out. And I think that what we saw today maybe was a little bit of well, because it kind of got laid out in such a weird place. All I can think is that the New York Times took the piece. That is just like mind blowing to me. The friggin' New York Times.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess the CNBC interview, that was relatively shocking for me, to be honest with you. I just wasn't expecting. It definitely didn't lay it out in enough. It's what I'm coming to understand is it's incredibly complex, and that makes it very difficult to lay this out in an article or lay this out in a 3-minute soundbite. It's almost impossible. So
they're trying. Do you want to get back together and kind of delve into the paper, and maybe we can source out another person to come in and read through it? And
sure. If you have if you know someone who would be interested,
well, I could ask Charles Hoskinson.
Sure.
Is that good?
Yeah, I'm sure he'll make an appearance.
There's a few people
looking forward to it.
There's a few people, but we'll put the call to action. Okay, guys, the call to action is that if you have any interest, first of all, read just do a cursory read, or do a deep dive, and if you have any spirited response, contact either one of us, and we'll put together in the next, I would think, the next couple of days would be good enough. Or even maybe, next couple of days, and we'll see if we can kind of get back together, and we can do where everyone kind of has their own copy, and and kind of go through it, because I know that there's some definitely yellow highlighter stuff that I'm more asking about the framing. I also go to IBM Watson quite a bit and do their sentiment reader. I don't know if you know about that or not, but you can take all that text and run it through Watson.
What does it do?
And Watson comes back and tells you, "Ooh, that dude be angry. Ooh, that dude's very uncertain of himself." Yeah, it comes back with this sentiment reading of all your text.
And have you done that today?
I have not done that on the paper. No, that's what's really cool about us getting together, is that I'm coming to you actually really just raw. I mean, I did some. I reached out to some people. Like, what do you want to say? What's your situation with this? Blah blah blah. And then outside of that, it's been you and me and the apple tree. That's it. So I think it'd be really cool if people would take the initiative. I know it's very easy to be a keyboard warrior on some of the forums, but now's the chance. Whether we do this, you have a YouTube channel, or
I don't.
Is it something that you would consider?
It is.
Doing?
It is. It's something I would consider doing. I'm currently working on some projects related to basically the research that I've been doing. So,
well, I'm happy to host, but I'm also happy to show up to wherever you would see that this could actually go and be made part of, as I call it, the ecosystem. Because there's no reason why people wouldn't want to know what your thought was, or what you had discovered, etc. Because as long as there's Bitfinex, there will be Tether, from what I understand. This relationship, this symbiotic relationship, is not going to be divorcing themselves. It
Not
might be
anytime soon.
changing. That's why I was asking you about this whole, the notion that it was the dollar. Even if you read the paper closely, they're even kind of they waffle a little bit about stating that it is the U.S. dollar. They think in one part they talk about it has to be pegged to a currency. I was like, oh, okay. So I guess there's other currency that we can look at. That means that I have to get out my beauty bubble coin like straight away. Need to do that. I was listening to the Money Conference. Did you get a chance to listen into that?
I did listen to that.
Oh man, there was they ended up with 3 pitches. I don't know who won, but there was a pitch that was done of the company that you can go to and make your own bank. I was like, okay, that's it. I want some fun the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I would like to have some fun, like being able to say I have my own bank.
It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild.
Yeah,
Living
it's
in the Wild West.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very much so. So if you guys can hear, the sound of our voice, we're open. And there'll be some more things that will go out to our Twitter or my Twitter and Tim's Twitter. And do you want to say the closing words and then we'll wrap it up?
Sure. I just want to know that I just want everyone to know that my intention has never been to attack Bitcoin. My intention has never been to harm anyone necessarily. So if anything, I want people to ask questions. So ask more questions and don't believe everything I say, obviously, but anyone else for that matter. I don't advise. It's such a worn and tired cliche of do your own research, but I think it gets mistaken when you read like a New York Times article. You may think you're doing your research, but it's best to read the academic paper that the New York Times article is referencing to do your own research. And there's a million questions and a million good reasons to not have faith in Tether, and there's probably a lot of reasons to have full faith in it. So I know that most people would just believe what the market is dictating, and that the market is dictating that there's not much of an issue right now. So in terms of the price of Tether. So everyone, there is no right until we know what right is. And that's about it.
Well, very cool. So we're going to say goodbye to everyone here on YouTube. And then when we go dark, we'll still stay in the Hangout for just a moment and talk to each other. But thanks a lot, guys. And remember, there is a cookbook out there. All you have to do is write me. It's 208 pages. It's called Good Food, because we do believe that good food leads to a good life. And certainly, if you eat well, you will trade well. We know this after 10 years being in the chair. And we know this to be a truism. And so until then, we'll talk to everybody later. Bye-bye now.